Thanks to Baron of Dice, Grey Matter Gaming, and Monument Hobbies for sponsoring this video. Of all the varieties of Space Marine, Space Wolves have been one of the better performers for the bulk of 10th edition, leaning on a set of powerful datasheets combined with the Stormlands task force to overwhelm opponents early and trap them in Wolf Jail, a dense, furry realm of snarling teeth and 4-up invulnerable saves. Over the last 6 months, they've endured a series of nerfs which have blunted their effectiveness but seen them varying their approach, with more successful lists branching out into non-Thunderwolf units and the Champions of Rust Detachment. Longtime Space Wolves players have been looking for an alternative way to play for some time now, one that doesn't lean so heavily on Thunderwolf cavalry, and with the new Champions of Fenris detachment, they get their wish. If you'd rather read this than listen to my yipping and yapping, head on over to goonhammer.com. Link in the description. Detachment Rule: The Great Wolf Watches. At the end of your opponent's charge phase, each Adeptus Astartes infantry and walker unit in your army that is within 3 inches of one or more enemy units and would be eligible to declare a charge against one or more of those units can declare a charge against one or more of those units, and you resolve that charge as if it were your charge phase. If that charge is successful, your unit doesn't receive any charge bonus like Fights First this turn. While Terminator units from your army are not battle shocked, add 1 to the objective control characteristic of models in those units. Giving your entire army old school heroic intervention is a buck-wild ability, and something that's gonna be a nightmare to play around. This more or less makes it impossible to steal objectives from Space Wolves units without getting into combat, and opens them up to all kinds of nasty tricks. Ragnar Blackman in particular loves this because it triggers his Battle Lust ability, giving him +2 to his strength and attacks on Frostfang even though he's not getting to fight first. Bjorn the Fell-Handed also likes this, and any opponent who gets too close may suddenly find the old Dreadnought zipping an extra 7 or 8 inches across the table with his command point cost increasing aura. The OC bonus here makes the designers' intent pretty clear. They want you to take Terminators in this detachment. That's just fine, honestly. Wolfguard Terminators are already pretty playable, able to stack Thunderhammers and combi weapons to put out staggering amounts of damage, plus they've got a lot of great character options like Logan Grimnar and Arjak Rockfist. The real value though? Attaching a Wolfguard pack leader and Terminator armor to a unit of Bloodclaws or Grey Hunters, giving them the Terminator keyword and +1 OC, as well as making them eligible for a host of stratagems. 2 of these enhancements are Terminator only. They're a solid set with at least one must-take. Wolves' Wisdom extends the range of the Great Wolf Watch's detachment rule from 3 inches to 6 inches, doubling your threat range to cover almost an entire objective marker's control area. It's an amazing threat tool, letting you effectively hide behind walls and cover while still being able to plow through against an opponent who got too close. Foes' Fate is a Terminator enhancement, forcing non-vehicle, non-monster units falling back from the bearer to take a desperate escape test, and at -1 if they're battle shocked. It's an okay deterrent to falling back, but not as good as spending those points on the next enhancement. Fangrune Pendant has to go on a Terminator as well, and gives their unit the ability to shoot and charge after falling back. This is always excellent for getting out of a jam, escaping a tar pit, or getting around screens. Longstrider allows the bearer's unit to real charge distance, which is nice, but any captain can use their free stratagem to do the same. Now, none of these stratagems are going to set the world on fire, but they're a decent set with some good use cases. Prey Taker's Eye gives an infantry unit lethal or sustained hits in the shooting or fight phase. That's always a solid buff, and the option to choose means it still works with the Wolfguard battle leader. Armor of Contempt is here, same as all the rest, and not as good as it used to be. Runes of Claiming stickies one of your objectives in the command phase, provided it's held by an infantry or walker unit. Always useful. Chilling Howl pops off in your opponent's command phase, causing each enemy unit within 6 inches of one of your Terminator units to make a battle shock test, and at -1 if they're below half strength. The timing and range on this one are good, potentially flipping objectives and turning off stratagems, but Battle Shock is always hard to rely on. Stalking Wolves gives one of your infantry units stealth until the end of your opponent's shooting phase. With the nerf to Armor of Contempt, this is pretty handy, and it can make your Terminators all the more difficult to shift. Onrushing Storm has you pick up a Terminator squad and put it into strategic reserves. Uppy downy effects are always good, but doubly so on units which can deep strike. The wording is odd in that it seems to specifically affect basic Terminator squads from the Codex and not your Wolfguard Terminators, which feels like a mistake. Playing this detachment is pretty straightforward. If you're running it, you're playing Terminators. Wolfguard Terminators are pretty solid in that regard. They've already been seeing play in Champions of Rust lists, usually with a single 5 model or 10 model unit. Their ability to combine Thunderhammers and combi weapons gives them some incredible damage output, though you'll generally want to have a Cyclone missile launcher and a couple of Storm Shields around to have some more durable models in the unit. On top of Wolfguard Terminators, you'll probably want one unit of regular basic Terminators to use Onrushing Storm. The general idea is that these sit on objectives as durable threats, and anything trying to come close just gets reactive charged and murdered. We mentioned earlier, you can create a pseudo-Terminator unit by combining a Wolfguard pack leader in Terminator armor with unit of Bloodclaws. These immediately become incredibly dangerous, capable of dropping out solid damage output, but also becoming a massive threat to anything nearby. You'll still want one with Ragnar Blackmane, and while you can add a pack leader on top of that, you'll get more value out of putting them in a Rhino. Note that pack leaders in Terminator armor can't have enhancements, so while adding them to Bloodclaws is a good idea, you can't use them to get that 6-inch heroic intervention. There's no shortage of good infantry units to work with in the Space Wolves book, and Wolfen also love to get free countercharges on things getting too close. Bjorn the Fell-Handed and Wolfen Dreadnoughts are also fine picks here, and you can build a pretty beefy list running Terminator bricks and Dreadnoughts, with support from Bloodclaws, Scouts, and some of the better non-Wolf units, such as Blade Guard veterans. Now let's cover some strengths and weaknesses. Army-wide heroic intervention means your opponent can never move close to your units without getting charged. High OC on Terminator units gives you a lot of options and strong control, especially with Terminator-led Bloodclaws. There's also a decent mix of offensive and defensive buffs in the stratagems. Unfortunately, one of the best of those, the uppy-downy stratagem, is limited to a single, not especially good unit. Terminators are also slow, and this detachment doesn't give them any movement buffs. You can also leave your Longfangs at home. There's not much support for ranged units here. The Champions of Fenris Detachment gives Space Wolves players an option that focuses more on their infantry and Terminator units, giving them a solid set of tools to work with at the cost of losing out on the melee buffs in the Stormlands Task Force, or the army-wide buffs you can get from Champions of Rus. The real star of the show is the Detachment rule, which gives all of your infantry and walker units the ability to charge anything within 3 inches at the end of the opponent's charge phase, opening up a nightmarish realm of possibilities when it comes to controlling objectives in the middle of the table. Opponents can't come close without getting charged, and that's going to make this detachment very tricky to play around. That said, this utility comes at the cost of raw power, and while this detachment is very cool, it's likely not the most powerful way to play the faction. We're just happy they have a playable detachment that doesn't focus on Thunderwolf cavalry. If you'd like to read more about this detachment and the other 30 detachment Games Workshop dropped on us for Grotmas, head on over to goonhammer.com. This was a boatload of work from everyone here, so we'd really appreciate your support on Patreon. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Baron of Dice, Monument Hobbies, and Grey Matter Gaming for sponsoring this video. I've been Canis McLupine, wishing you all a merry wolf time and a happy awoo year. Thanks for watching.